Here we have the VBM Domobar Super, and this is the digital electronic version. It comes with a bunch of pressure profiles, which are a really interesting way that you can mix up your coffee. And to help me understand that, I have Dan from homebarista.com.
I think before we start, we really need to go back in history a little bit. The E61, by the name you could guess, was actually originally patented in 1961. And what's interesting is it's been an evolution in some respects. And this is probably the most recent and I think most interesting evolution of that.
I'm gonna ask for your expertise here in understanding all of the customizable programming that I can do on this machine, because I can change things like brewing temperature, which I think you could do on any machine, but I can also set these profiles in 9 different sections, which will say how much pressure I'm going to use, for how long, and so forth. And then to understand what difference that's going to make in the coffee. And we're actually going to make some coffees, right, and see if we can determine what the difference is.
Absolutely. And to make that distinction a little clearer, it's worth kind of explaining what an E61 does in the first place. So we'll talk about, this is the non-electronic version straight from the patent. What does it actually do? And it has a built-in pressure profile. So it has essentially, and we show it right here, if you look at that little area right there, there's a chamber that is directly below the brew chamber that is controlled by a spring valve. It will allow just some water to escape at about 4 bar until this chamber fills. And once that chamber fills, it then ramps up to the pump pressure, which is 9 bar. And so by default, this essentially produces a 4-9 sort of profile. Of course, automation comes into play, and that brings us to this one. Okay, so let's get to the specifics of it. What does it have as far as pressure profiles? Now, you've been playing this for like, what, a month or so, right?
I've been using this, making coffee for a month, and not really understanding the difference in the pressure profiles. I've been taking some of the pre-programmed ones and trying them and seeing what coffee comes out, and it's been quite interesting to see that, but I haven't really understood what happens between using 4 bar versus 9 bar, and it goes up to like 13 bar
right,
at
you
one
can,
point.
And the idea is that people like to explore what kind of different espresso profiles change in the taste. And traditionally, they've done this by using this valve that allows you to do it manually. This allows you to automate it. And to do that, it has 9 profiles, I believe. 9 profiles.
Yes, there's the manual profile, which you just set to 1 pressure.
Okay.
And then there are 9 where you can set different pressures over 7 different segments.
Right, so say for example, if you have 7 segments, you could say, well, for the first 5 or 10 seconds, I want this pressure, and then I want it to increase or decrease to this pressure, and so on, through up to 7 segments. With the manual profile, you're essentially saying, I want 1 fixed pressure. I don't want it to be changed over the course of the shot, and you get to pick what number that might be. So if we look at that really briefly, you'll see that it's saying I'm going to apply 9 bar pressure as soon as the pump can pressurize that. So let's go ahead and try that. Now this is a readout of the pump pressure. It is not the same as the actual pressure in the brew chamber, which is impacted by the coffee and how much resistance it offers. So that was the manual profile. Now let's take a look at one where I'm tweaking it automatically. And this one I have here for number 1 is a simulation of a lever profile. So you see here that it starts out at 3 bar during the pre-infusion phase for 10 seconds. Then it starts to ramp up fairly rapidly in 5 seconds. Another till finally its final pressure 9 bar, and continues that. Just like a spring lever, the pressure is going to decline as the spring decompresses. So you see here, it will decrease over that period, ultimately landing at 4 bar. So let's go ahead and give that a try, see what it looks like. This graph will show what the pump is producing. This is not the same as what the brew chamber effective pressure is, because that depends on the resistance of the coffee. So that was our first 10 seconds of pre-infusion. We rapidly rise up to 9 bar. We continue at that for a while. And then we start to trail off. So the idea behind that reduction in pressure towards the end is the puck is not being able to offer as much resistance, so you want to reduce the pressure so you do not extract undesirable components of the coffee. We're going to go ahead and pull an espresso using Counterculture's Big Trouble. It's a real crowd pleaser espresso blend that's forgiving, mostly chocolates and nuts. We're going to weigh out 17 grams. Okay. And because it's dry out, we're going to give it a little spritz. We had a little AWOL. Get back in there. Okay. As it's grinding, I'm rotating the basket to get as even a coffee bed as possible. You can see it's really fluffy, so I'm going to knock it down just a teeny bit. And then just to be extra sure, I'm going to give it a little bit of a WT to correct just that little bit of unevenness. And just to be, sometimes I like to do this just to make sure that the top of it layer is clear. Tamp away. So let's make an espresso. Now we had 17 grams of coffee, and we're going to do a traditional double. So that means we want to have 34 grams of beverage. Reset that. And we're going to use the lever profile. That's the one we talked about earlier, which has a 4-bar pre-infusion, ramps up, and then declines. Here we go. It's got a nuttiness, it's got a full balanced flavor to it, and also it's got a lot of body. I like that especially for espressos that are made more traditional, as Big Trouble is. Let's go ahead and let the cameraman give it a try.
All right, let's try this. Oh yeah, that's really good. We've been making a lot of these today, and when you get it right, you get that nutty taste and a really sort of a full mouthfeel. That's exactly what I'm getting here. No sourness. This is delicious. So that's how it works, and in the next video, Dan and I are going to play around with some of these pressure profiles and apply them to different roasts of beans, including some light roasts. See you on that one.